I watched my sister-in-law's perfectly manicured fingers hovering over my champagne flute, and in that split second, I understood what real betrayal looked like. 10 years. A decade of marriage to Frank, the love of my life, and I'd planned this anniversary celebration down to the smallest detail. Golden balloons cascaded from the ceiling of our favorite restaurant's private room, fairy lights twinkled against exposed brick walls, and our closest friends and family surrounded us with warmth and laughter. Please subscribe, like, and comment where you are listening from. Everything was perfect. Almost too perfect. "Bella, you've outdone yourself," my mother said, squeezing my hand as she admired the centerpieces, white roses intertwined with gold ribbons, just like my wedding bouquet. "This is absolutely beautiful." I beamed, feeling the weight of months of planning lift from my shoulders. Frank caught my eye from across the room where he stood with his brother David, and he winked. My heart still fluttered after all these years. But there was one person whose smile didn't quite reach her eyes. Veronica, Frank's brother's wife, had been acting strange all evening. She arrived late, her designer dress wrinkled, mascara slightly smudged. Throughout dinner, I'd caught her staring at Frank with an intensity that made my skin crawl. When she thought no one was looking, her face would contort into something ugly, something resentful. I'd always known Veronica envied my relationship with Frank. She'd made snide comments over the years, little digs about how lucky I was, how Frank was the better brother, how their marriage to David was fine, just fine. But tonight, something felt different. Darker. The moment came during the champagne toast. Frank stood, glass raised, his voice thick with emotion as he spoke about our journey together. The room fell silent except for a few sniffles from sentimental guests. I clutched my champagne flute, ready for the toast, when I noticed I needed to grab my phone from my purse to capture the moment. "Hold on, honey," I whispered, setting my glass on the high-top table beside me. "I want to record this." I turned away for maybe 30 seconds, fishing my phone from my clutch on a nearby chair. When I turned back, Veronica was standing beside my table, too close to my champagne. Her back was to the room, her body angled in a way that shielded the glass from view. My blood ran cold. I watched, frozen, as her hand moved in a quick, practiced motion. A flash of her fingers dipping into her clutch, then hovering over my glass. The gesture was so swift, so calculated, that anyone not paying attention would have missed it entirely. But I saw it. I saw everything. My mind raced. What did she put in my drink? And why? Veronica stepped back, smoothing her dress, her face composed into a mask of innocence as she turned. Our eyes met for a fraction of a second. She smiled, a thin, satisfied smile that confirmed my worst suspicions. She thought she'd gotten away with it. Frank was still speaking, his words a distant murmur as adrenaline surged through my veins. I forced myself to breathe, to think clearly. Confronting her now would ruin the party and alert her that I'd seen her. Whatever she'd planned would simply shift to another opportunity. No, I needed to be smart about this. I glanced at Veronica's champagne glass, sitting innocently on the table next to mine. They were identical, same crystal flutes, same golden liquid bubbling gently. An idea formed. I moved casually toward the table, my phone in hand, pretending to adjust the angle for a better video. As I leaned forward, I smoothly switched the glasses, placing hers where mine had been and taking mine, the untainted one, for myself. To Bella, Frank concluded, his eyes finding mine across the room. My partner, my best friend, my everything. Here's to the next 10 years, and the 10 after that, and every decade until we're old and gray. To Bella and Frank, the room chorused. I raised my clean glass, my eyes locked on Veronica as she reached for what she thought was her champagne. She lifted the drugged flute to her lips, tipped it back, and drank deeply. The satisfaction I felt was cold and sharp. "Beautiful speech, darling," I said, crossing to Frank and kissing him softly. Over his shoulder, I watched Veronica drain her glass. The party continued. Music played, guests danced, cake was served. I kept Veronica in my peripheral vision the entire time, noting the moment, about 20 minutes after the toast, when her expression began to change. She blinked rapidly, touching her forehead. Her movements became sluggish, uncoordinated. She reached for David's arm to steady herself. "David," she slurred, her voice loud enough to draw attention. I don't feel right." David's face creased with concern. "What's wrong? Did you eat something bad?" "I'm dizzy." Veronica's knees buckled. I was at her side in an instant, the picture of concern. "Oh my God, Veronica. Here, sit down." We guided her to a chair. Her pupils were dilated, her skin flushed. She kept trying to speak, but her words came out garbled and nonsensical. "We should call 911, I said firmly, pulling out my phone. "No." Veronica's hand shot out, gripping my wrist with surprising strength. Through her drugged haze, clarity flickered across her face, recognition of her predicament. "No hospital." "Veronica, you're clearly having some kind of reaction," Frank said, kneeling beside his brother. "We need to make sure you're okay. Maybe it's just too much champagne on an empty stomach?" David suggested, though his voice carried doubt. I watched Veronica's internal struggle play out across her features. She knew. She knew what was happening to her because she'd planned for it to happen to me. And she couldn't explain it without revealing what she'd done. "I'll take her home," David said finally. "Get her into bed, call our doctor if she doesn't improve." "Are you sure?" I asked, layering my voice with appropriate concern. "This seems serious." Veronica's eyes met mine, and in them I saw fear. Real, genuine fear. "I'm fine," she managed, though she clearly wasn't. "Just need to go home." David helped her stand, supporting most of her weight as they made their way toward the exit. At the door, Veronica looked back at me one final time. The fear in her eyes had transformed into something else, understanding. She knew that I knew, and she knew she'd gotten exactly what she'd intended for me. The party ended on a strange note, guests murmuring about poor Veronica's mysterious illness. Frank and I assured everyone she'd be fine, that David would take care of her. Later that night, as we lay in bed, Frank pulled me close. What a weird ending to the evening. "I hope Veronica's okay." "I'm sure she'll be fine," I said, my voice neutral. I'd spent the drive home debating whether to tell Frank what I'd witnessed. Part of me wanted to expose Veronica immediately, to reveal her treachery and see her face consequences. But another part, the part that had watched my husband speak about our marriage with such genuine love and devotion, wanted to protect him from the ugliness of his sister-in-law's jealousy. "You know what's strange?" Frank said suddenly. David texted me. He said they found a pill bottle in Veronica's purse. Some kind of sedative. He's confused because she's never mentioned taking anything like that. My heart rate quickened. "Really?" "Yeah. He's worried she might have a problem he didn't know about." Frank sighed. "I told him we'd help however we can." I was quiet for a moment, processing this information. The evidence was right there. One word from me, and the truth would come out. "Bella." Frank turned to look at me in the darkness. "You've been quiet since we got home. What's on your mind?" I made my decision. "I saw something tonight," I began. I told him everything. The moment by the glasses, Veronica's suspicious behavior, the switch, her reaction. Frank listened without interrupting, his body growing tenser with each word. When I finished, he sat up, turning on the bedside lamp. His face was pale, eyes wide with shock. "Are you absolutely certain?" he asked. "I know what I saw." He ran his hands through his hair, looking physically ill. Why would she? What was she planning to do? We both knew the answer. Whatever Veronica had planned, it wasn't just about making me sick or embarrassed. This was calculated, deliberate sabotage at a moment meant to celebrate our love. "We need to handle this carefully," Frank said finally. "But we need to handle it. She can't get away with this." The next morning, David called. Veronica had confessed everything, the drugs, the plan, the years of festering jealousy that had finally erupted into action. She'd intended to make me violently ill at my own anniversary party, to ruin the celebration and create a scene that would forever taint the memory of our 10th anniversary. Instead, she'd poisoned herself and revealed her true nature. "I'm so sorry," David said, his voice breaking. "I had no idea she was capable of something like this. We're getting her help. Professional help. And she wants to apologize to you herself." "I'm not ready for that," I said honestly. "But I appreciate you telling us." Frank and I decided not to press charges, but we set firm boundaries. Veronica would attend therapy, take accountability for her actions, and we would have no contact until we felt ready, if ever. The strangest part? I don't feel victorious. I feel sad. Sad that someone's envy could consume them so completely that they'd try to hurt someone who'd never done them wrong. Sad that a family celebration had exposed such darkness. But I also feel grateful. Grateful that I'd been paying attention. Grateful that I'd trusted my instincts. Grateful that I'd protected myself without even knowing the full extent of what I was protecting myself from. And most of all, grateful for Frank, who believed me without question, who stood by me without hesitation, and who reminded me that our love is worth celebrating, worth protecting, and worth fighting for. If you've ever felt that something wasn't quite right in your relationships, whether with family, friends, or partners, trust your instincts. Your gut feelings exist for a reason. Don't dismiss those small warning signs or talk yourself out of what you've seen with your own eyes. Pay attention, stay alert, and never let anyone make you doubt your own perceptions. Have you experienced a moment when trusting your instincts saved you from a difficult situation? Share your story in the comments below. Your experience might be exactly what someone else needs to hear to trust themselves. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the bell for more interesting stories every day.